In honor of former Cavaliers #1 overall pick out of the University of Notre Dame, Austin Carr, welcome to the 34th episode of Cleveland Sports Realm. I am Kevin, joined alongside my co-host, Jerome. Behind the camera is No Chill Eric. You cannot see him, but we can. Jerome, we're going to start off this episode, I think. It's kind of been a hot topic in this city. Is going to be the Cleveland Guardians. So they've been on a little bit of a cold stretch here the last few weeks. A couple hot prospects in the pipeline right now in DeLauter and Kayfus. I think we're probably going to jump right into that.
Yeah.
And kind of where the Guardians are at right now.
So they honestly had a pretty good road trip. I shouldn't say pretty good. They had an okay road trip.
Sure.
They got their asses handed to them in Seattle. And then they go and take 2 out of 3 from a good Giants team, and that was kind of nice in the debut series of Raffy Devers. And then they go and take 2 out of 3 from a not so good, quite frankly, bad Oakland team.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm still going to call them Oakland. That's what they should be.
Sure.
And
I agree.
So
at least for now.
They do that, and so then they come home, and so far we are recording this as of about 10 minutes after a Jose Ramirez walk-off single here on Wednesday evening. And so now they've split the Jays. They need to win this Jays series tomorrow. You have Tanner Bybee on the mound who, is your ace. Would he be an ace on a lot of staffs? I don't know. But they need to get that done. Jose Ramirez with his 8th career walk-off, 7th career walk-off hit. He had 1 walk-off base on balls, I believe. So they're like treading water, but doesn't seem to be like any consistent winning streaks. And that's hard to do when your offense flat out stinks.
Well, yeah, I think it's tough too when you've still got Gabriel Arias kind of manning. I mean, they've dropped him down a little bit in the order, but he's been manning what seems like the middle of that order, batting 5th or 6th for a long time this year, and he's just one of those guys. And Jerome, you've hit on this multiple times in episodes prior, but he's just one of those guys that guesses on every single pitch. When he guesses right, he does make some pretty good contact, but he doesn't look at the ball. He's guessing. I mean, the amount of at-bats that I've seen where he's seen 3 pitches only, all outside of the strike zone, and he's gone down on 3 pitches, it's sickening.
Well, he did it in tonight's game. We were watching that.
Yeah.
He has that big 2-run double to put the ball club up 3-1, feeling good. And then the next pitch, or the next AB, he comes up and he does not even see a strike. Yeah. And what I've learned with Arias is, and the organization glazes him constantly and says that, he does have all these raw tools and abilities and this and that. And you know what? To me, it's a bunch of horse crap. But because of that natural fact that he does have a lot of natural talent, I will admit that. And you're right. He guesses right. And about once a week, he'll come up with a huge hit. Had
a big hit tonight as we record Wednesday.
Right. And last Tuesday, he had the big home run to get them the win in San Francisco to begin the series, in the Raffy Devers debut game. Gets that home run to a place where not many righties do. I'll give him that in San Francisco in the Triples Alley out there. And that's a big, big ballpark. And why are you looking at me like that?
Because you said big, big,
well, it's
big.
Huge.
Well, yeah, 100%.
It's a huge outfield out there. And so he gets that hit. He doesn't get a hit all week long, and then comes up with a big 2-run double tonight. And now probably we'll wait till next Wednesday or Thursday, and he'll come up with another big hit, and the beat will go on. To me, I've had enough of Arias. They're not going to do it. I think if you're going to do whatever they're going to do at the trade deadline, I would be interested to see what you could get for Arias if other teams still believe in him. But the problem is I don't know if they'll even list him as available because I think our front office just blindly believes in Gabby Arias too much.
Would you take anything for him? Even a single A prospect at this point for him? Because at one point he was worth something. He was kind of one of those, I wouldn't say blue chip, but he was a pretty decent prospect that you could have included and actually put, if you were packaging a deal for a starting middle infielder or for a starting corner outfielder, he was a guy you could throw in the deal and that would put that over the hump. I don't think he's that guy anymore. That even if you threw him in a deal,
because he's been exposed too much to major league level,
and he is a good defender.
He is. He's got a cannon of an arm, but the bottom line is, I think they're just going to ride out the string with him this year. But to me, I wouldn't do such a thing. What I would do is, and it would make your defense suffer a little bit, and they're not going to do it because they're too obsessed with platooning and right and left-handed hitting and all that. And we
drives me nuts.
We went over that pretty extensively on last week's show, last week's episode, I should say. But what I would do is Daniel Schneeman's been hitting the hell out of the ball, like for what we thought he was. He's played better than a utility infielder in my opinion.
Has. I wouldn't say all-star level like the Guardians have been tweeting about.
Yeah,
but
no, I agree.
He's played better than we expected him to coming into this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what I would personally do is I would bring up Juan Brito. Now they're not going to do such a thing because they're going to tell you we need to see Juan get consistently healthy at the AAA.
This is if you were in control of the roster right now, this is what you would be doing.
This is what I would do.
Okay.
And I would give Brito about a week in AAA to get his legs under him, but he came back and smashed 3 hits today for the Clippers, which the Clippers have a huge following right now because people want to. There's 3 guys down there people want to see be Guardians.
Kayfus, DeLauter,
and Brito.
Right.
So what I would do, and they're not going to do it because they're going to say it's too many, but I would put Schneeman at shortstop, Brito at second, and then I would probably realistically leave Arias as a bench bat to have a right-handed bat on the bench.
I actually agree with you with the Arias point. I would keep him in the majors, and just because of how versatile he is defensively. You can play him at middle infield. You can play him at third. I think you can even play him at first if you wanted to.
Yeah,
I even like
a while, but
I even like him on one of those days where you're going to put maybe your starting right fielder on the bench, or even if Quan has a day of rest. I don't mind him playing corner outfield either. I think with what you were saying earlier, the cannon of an arm that he has, relatively reliable defender. He's a better infielder defender than he is outfield, but still.
Right, because that's his that's what I would do. And even honestly, if they were so, that's what I would do to better the offense, because and I know your defense would suffer because Schneeman's not nearly has the range or arm or any ability at shortstop that Arias does, but I also think Schneeman's going to hit more consistently, and I want to see what Brito can do. And at this point, we've talked about it for the last 4 weeks straight now. They are in an absolute log jam in the middle of the American League. And, it's time that they take a couple steps forward because the Tigers, as well as they've played this year, they're not setting the world on fire these last couple weeks. This would be your time to strike. The problem is we can't seem to win more than 2 ball games in a row.
Yeah, no, it's been tough. And I actually want to go back to your log jam point when in reference to a couple other players when that the fan base wants called up, and DeLauter and Kayfus, because Kayfus is obviously that guy, primarily a first baseman, which obviously right now we have Santana and Manzardo there, which it seems like Santana could potentially be moved in the next coming weeks. So, and then there's obviously DeLauter that's going to be coming up. Obviously he would be probably manning right field if he ever gets called up. And I believe you had said earlier off the air that Andre Knott had said something about basically don't expect DeLauter or Kayfus up until after the trade deadline or somewhere around the trade deadline.
All-Star break or trade deadline.
Okay. So then you're running into that problem. Now you've got a log jam between Kayfus, Santana, and Manzardo. Let's say if all 3 of them were up, and then also DeLauter and Kayfus, who would you play in right field? Especially both of them are lefties, and we know how much Vogt loves his matchups, so how are you picking and choosing those matchups at that point?
Well, and that's the thing that I think really makes this tough is, to me, the Kayfus is actually the tougher one, and I'll explain why in a minute. DeLauter, I just don't get it because he's proven the ability, and I get it. It's AAA, and so Andre Knott did bring this up too, and it's a fair point when they added Chris Antonetti on the telecast tonight. It's a fair point. There has never been a bigger gap between AAA and the big leagues. I think it's as steep as it ever been in our entire lifetime, but how are we ever going to know if the kids just continue to destroy AAA pitching, which they're doing? How the hell are we ever going to know if they can hit in the big leagues? Look, I'm going to get a little geeky here for a second. And Zach Meisel pointed this out. Look at OPS, on base plus slugging, and then WRC plus, which is weighted runs created plus. Okay, we are 30 out of 30. And OPS and WRC plus from our right fielders out of all the major league teams. So how could you not look at this and think, even if Chase DeLauter sucks,
I was going to say, even if he bats 220 to 230,
it's
an upgrade.
An upgrade over anybody who's been out there.
Absolutely.
John Kenzie Noel, we talked about a few weeks back, they screwed him over. But Nolan Jones, how many times am I going to have to see her that, he hit the ball hard? Guess what? hit it hard all you want. I'm tired of it finding mitts. It needs to find some grass or some seats. He was supposed to be a power threat this year. Guy got 3 home runs.
Yeah, he's actually one of those guys. You could actually argue that he's kind of been basically a left-handed Arias this year for us.
Yeah, no, I think even worse. Because Arias has had a few clutch hits. I can't recall Nolan Jones really coming up with a...
It was funny that tonight Arias was the one that drove Nolan in, though.
Yeah, that was entertaining from this point of view. I do remember that one-day game in which Angel Martinez against the Dodgers, Nolan Jones did tie up the game. I think that's the only clutch hit he had all year, which was a base hit to tie the game. But besides that, like, I think what it is the front office does not want to admit they made another bad trade, another mistake by bringing Nolan Jones back. And that's what it is. And they don't want to give up on him, but because he's out of options. So if DeLauter comes, Nolan Jones serves negative purpose on this team because what is he? He's a corner outfielder. Well, he can play center too.
Used to play third, but again, we went over this, I think, last week, maybe 2 episodes ago. It's been so long since he's been there. Yeah. You're not putting him back there again.
To me, Nolan Jones ought to be and I know there are people that disagree with this. If they decided to call up CDL and the move and not classified driver's license either, that's Chase DeLauter.
Yeah.
But if they decide to call up Chase DeLauter, the first person I'd get rid of was Nolan Jones. And then if you're so hell-bent on keeping Nolan Jones, which something tells me they're going to be, then you could option Jonathan Rodriguez. I mean, this guy's the quintessential.
I think I'd send Rodriguez down before Jones.
Well, Jones, again, you can't. Like, it's either a DFA
no, I know.
And I think Nolan Jones is still young enough and still has enough upside and enough executives' mind. I don't think he'd clear waivers. Maybe he would. I don't know, but I don't think he would.
I don't think he would either, just with the upside that you brought up. And that trade's so frustrating to me because in the moment, I can't think of one person in this fan base that didn't like that deal or didn't think that we were on the better end of it. And now Tyler Freeman, at least last time I had checked his stats, was hovering around 300 for the Rockies. And it's one of those things, obviously, we tried him at center field. I thought he played decent in center field, but was obviously more of a middle infielder. And we had such a logjam at middle infield that we kind of had to get rid of somebody, needed a corner outfielder. Nolan Jones had that season with the Rockies 2 years ago, a phenomenal season with the Rockies 2 years ago. I didn't think we were going to get that Nolan Jones, but I thought we were going to get more 2023 than 2024 Nolan Jones, and it just hasn't been that way, which is unfortunate. It stinks.
It stinks. I thought we'd definitely get more than 210 and 3 home runs.
Which actually goes back to your brother's point from last week's episode of these players in the MLB hit these certain hot streaks, like 1 or 2 years where they're hovering at that 300 mark. You never hear from them again. I mean, we saw Ramon Laureano. Yeah. He had a 2-year stretch with the Oakland A's, and that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. Came here, didn't do anything, was okay for the Braves, I guess, when he had to sub in for Acuna's injury. Like, he played decent there, but it wasn't amazing.
Shockingly, like, he's having an okay year with the Orioles. Like, I think he's someone who probably could get moved at the deadline because the Orioles are they're a little bit better of late, but they're having a rough year. But still, to your point, Ramon Laureano was like a top 5 center fielder in the game, and now at best he's like a platoon right-handed stick.
Seriously,
you put out there to get a little pop.
I mean, that's how we started using him by the end of his tenure here. He was just facing lefties.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. So it's interesting. Now, the other one with that is Kayfus. So I think
I'm interested in this.
The big mess here is it's unfortunate, but David Fry's Tommy John surgery. David Fry can't do anything for you 1 through 9 in the field, which sucks because he can play all the corners.
Just a versatile defender. It's nice.
And realistically, I mean, I'm at the point where the catching production's so poor. I mean, Bo's down to 174. Austin Hedges is, I mean this, I think he is literally at 105. Like, he's getting close to batting below 100 right now. Obviously, that's in limited playing time, but either way, if Austin Hedges played every day, he'd probably even be worse. He'd probably be at 087. Like, the guy just can't hit, all right? So he's there to be a coach and a mentor and
just an attitude in the clubhouse.
And they pay him $4 million to do so. I think it sucks because even though Fry hasn't hit the ball well now, I mean, in a microscopic sense, that bunt tonight was huge that he just laid down.
Yeah, it was.
And he did that last year in the playoffs. And just like David Fry does do a lot of the little things. But to me, it sucks because I think the catching's been so bad that even though David Fry hasn't hit a lick, I think at this point you'd probably
He'd be our everyday catcher. He would have to be.
You'd probably have him as your everyday catcher, and it would just alleviate this big log jam. And then
I agree.
You could really even like what I would do is, and I know like not all our listeners may know this, but you know this for sure, that I have like a high praise and high grade, and my Carlos Santana bias could fill up this entire room. Well, let alone this whole street. But, you know, like how much bias I am towards him. But
I get it, yeah.
I just can't see trading Carlos Santana right now if you claim you're quote-unquote in it when he is literally your third best hitter.
Well, and that's what Antonetti said when they were interviewing him during the game today.
Yeah.
He had insinuated that they were potentially going to go after some guys or at least make a push to, add to the roster. He didn't say anything about removing pieces from the roster. So that would at least make the fan base think that you're going to actually make some moves to try to compete, especially in a competitive AL. We've gone over that before too.
Yeah.
They've been in a slump. They're still right in the thick of everything though.
Yeah, and I'd say it was real bad there, like last week's podcast when I came on and I kind of let them have it.
Yeah.
And then you and our guest host, my brother Rob, kind of talked me off the ledge there a little bit. And then they went out.
Tends to do what I have to do.
And then they went out and had a couple good series. Again, they went 4-2 on the back end of that 9-game long West Coast road trip. But like they got to continue to play well and win games. Like, right? Okay, you could probably afford a loss to Toronto tomorrow, but please, it'd be nice to win the series. And then it'd be nice to go 4-2 and like have a winning homestand. And you got a St. Louis team who was expected to be terrible that's playing pretty good ball, and they're coming in here this weekend. Like, they haven't had a chance to play a lot of bad teams lately. They got to play the A's, who aren't very good, and they did not sweep them, but they still took 2 out of 3, which is what they needed to do. And so they're, like you said, they're in this log jam. So, but I think, to me, the one thing that Chris Antonetti did say tonight, and I see a lot of people on X, or as we call it here, Twitter, and most people do, is like people were living with Chris tonight. But Chris, if you did hear one thing he said, is he does believe that both Kayfus and DeLauter will affect us by the end of the year. And I appreciated Andre not asking because, it seemed like they were all nervous, like Al Pulowski, Rick Manning, and Andre Knott knew what every single person that had their television set on tonight wanted the question to hear. And they were all kind of dancing around, talking about the ballpark, this, that, and the other.
They were giving him softballs for the first 5 minutes of that.
Quite frankly, pardon my French, nobody gave a shit about.
Wow.
Nobody gave a shit. And Andre Knott finally, took control and took the reins and said, all right, Chris, now we got to ask you, everybody wants to know, when's Chase coming?
Yeah, which you knew he knew that question was coming.
Yeah.
I mean, I even saw some tweets from people that were saying, like, there is so much excitement about these two guys in Kayfus and DeLauter right now amongst the fan base that they literally scheduled an Antonetti interview mid-game just to talk about it.
And I think they did too. And I also
did.
I also think there's a reason that Andre Knott went on ESPN Cleveland today and talked to DeLauter for a while. Like, their PR people down there aren't stupid.
Do you think this is the most hyped up? I'm trying to think. I mean, until obviously Bazana comes up, he'll be the most hyped up prospect since Lindor. But do you think currently DeLauter is? And then obviously it'll be surpassed by Bazana, but
I think position player wise, yes.
Okay.
Because as we know, they've had an organizational failure.
Bieber was hyped up.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. So that's why I'm saying as a position player.
That's why I'm
Because the bottom line is we know that they've had an organizational failure for years and years on end to develop hitting. Like the last good hitters that they homegrown developed that are like everyday players, it's been a long time. Like probably Jose Ramirez and at the time Lindor. Like, I mean, I guess
but Jose Ramirez wasn't even like hyped up.
No, exactly. I guess, I mean, you know what?
Urshela was hyped up a little bit, but it wasn't nearly to the magnitude that Lindor was.
The last good hitter they developed, I was going to say Lindor, and I completely, I feel bad for forgetting about this guy. Quan. You got to give them credit on Quan. That was a fifth-round pick.
No, of course, but I'm saying like hyped up. Like when we call like from the fan base, like, okay, we need to see this kid up right now.
Yeah, like Quan,
Quan kind of came out of, like, he basically just like randomly started Was it 2020 or would have been 2021 or 2022? He just randomly started as like our 2-hitter.
Yeah, because
Miles Straw was leading off at the time.
And you know I'm a geek with this stuff. I keep up with all this stuff. And to be quite frank with you, I didn't know who the hell Stephen Kwan was until I'm watching spring training in 2022, and I see this small little, like, short outfielder and, like, thin, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, who's this guy? And I'm like, and then I watch him, his batting stance, which if you don't, think about it at the time, you didn't know Stephen, and you're like, what the hell is this going? What's going on? And then you're just watching the guy spray hits everywhere in spring training. And Terry Francona said back in the time, they had zero intention of making him on the opening day. But Tito goes, he forced our hand.
Yeah.
He just wouldn't stop hitting.
Don't you love when prospects do that too?
Yeah. Oh, I love that stuff.
If I remember correctly, wasn't that the same game? Was that the same game that we were on the east side watching that for opening day against the Tigers?
No, that was 2021. Yeah.
Dang.
2022, we opened against the Royals.
Okay.
And Kwan had like 2 or 3. He had gotten on like 13 of his first 15 times in the big leagues or something.
Yeah, it was
like,
absurd. It was pretty cool.
And what you knew Kwan was going to be good, because we know one of the big things about here was Terry Francona. Even when Chris Antonetti would call up a top prospect, Terry Francona would glue his ass to the bench.
Yeah.
And wouldn't play him. And Terry Francona started Kwan and played him every day, and you're like, if Tito's playing this kid, there must be something here.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the last hitter they developed, and that was 3 years ago. Because Bo Naylor, I can't give them credit for that. He's hitting 175.
No. And Angel Martinez has been too streaky.
And so I would say, as far as hype, I think Chase is the most hype prospect they've had since Lindor.
Since Lindor, yeah.
I mean,
I said, it'll definitely get surpassed by Bazana whenever he gets called up, just because of that number 1 overall pick status.
Yes.
But right now, I can't think of, and Lindor, that goes back to what, 2013?
2015.
When he got called up, 2015? Yeah, wow, I'm
2015.
dating myself. I don't know why I said 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, 15.
No, because, and so I think hype-wise, I would agree with you. And I think that the fact that Chris Antonetti did it tonight, they're feeling the pressure. And I just wonder, maybe if, you're not supposed to do this, but the fans are going to drive them to drink, or the old saying goes, put the pressure on so much. I wonder if maybe Chase makes his debut this weekend. If he goes out and tears out the cover off the ball tomorrow or Friday for Columbus, maybe they do it this weekend, Saturday or Sunday. Because that would be,
for some reason, over the last couple of days, I saw all the hype on Guardians Twitter about DeLauter coming up. It was supposed to be, I think, today or yesterday. Everybody was like, "Oh, get ready for it," and it never happened. Well, I never had any expectation of him being called up, but
no, I think neither did I, because you and I we've evaluated this organization for far too long. They hold everyone down. Well, I remember back in early June, I see people, they're going to call up DeLauter. Are you delusional? Have you paid attention to our ownership? Do you think that ownership group is going to lose a year of service time? You got to be out of your mind if you thought they were going to call him up before the Super 2 deadline. What? No, come on.
Which I do have to ask, just with now us kind of on the topic of prospects. Have you seen how Caglione's been doing in Kansas City?
So he was struggling out the gates.
Okay, because I know Chase Burns for the Reds came out and was firing 100 miles an hour,
yes.
99. I saw that he looked really good. Nick Kurtz has obviously been playing great for the Athletics.
Yes, beat us Friday night.
Yeah, and then it stinks that our number 1 guy at a position right now of need, we can't call up right now, and he'd hopefully be batting in the first 6 of the lineup. I'm not gonna put him in the first 3 immediately, but you would think he would be in that first 2/3 of that lineup.
So that's the other thing that's interesting about the long-term goal and all the decisions they have to make. First of all, they have drafted and taken and signed in free agency, minor league, or international free agency. They have stockpiled 7,500 middle infielders, and then waited for all of them to lose prospect value and did not move a single one of them. And now they're in a position where it's
now you're playing them in the outfield.
Oh, yeah. maybe you should have moved one of those guys when value was super high. Like, let's take, for example, I remember, I think going into the 2023 season, Brian Rocchio was their number one prospect in the entire organization.
I remember that.
Why wouldn't you move him? Move him. I mean, at that time, move him. You could have gotten something for him. Like, and now they have this like total like log jam of Angel Martinez, Juan Brito,
Gabriel Arias,
Daniel Schneemann, who probably they to be honest with you, the way they looked at it, a 33rd round pick, they probably never thought Schneemann was going to be here to begin with.
I'll even say Bazana's in there just because.
Oh, of course he is. That's the one.
I mean, just in terms of like the logjam. I mean, I know he's here long term, but I'm just saying with all these middle infield guys.
Oh yeah, he's in there. I mean, so like you still and the only one you've ever decided to move was Tyler Freeman, and then don't forget that in Double-A, like one of their top prospects now. Behind Chase DeLauter and CJ Kayfus and all that is another middle infielder, and Angel Geno. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but another middle infielder. And it's like, at this point, they missed the boat, and now they're going to be forced to trade these guys, and the returns just aren't going to be satisfying.
It's going to end up, basically what it's going to end up being is like kind of what the Nolan Jones for Tyler Freeman swap was. Where it's like, okay, these guys haven't panned out for either of our organizations. Let's swap them and see if a change of culture, change of location helps them out, basically,
Well, and the interesting thing was, like, everything that when they were making trades and shipping people out, everything that they not only like did I say they attacked it like crazy in the draft and then the middle and then international free agency, everything when they traded they were looking to get back was middle infielders. Like when they initially shipped Nolan Jones out, what'd they get? Juan Brito, middle infielder. Yeah. When they traded Josh Bell to the Marlins at the 2023 deadline, what did they get back? Khalil Watson, a middle infielder. Like they had this like overwhelming obsession with the middle infielder, and then it's like
you can only play two of them,
and then it's like, oh yeah, and then you wonder why we haven't had a good right fielder since Shin-Soo Choo. I mean,
I thought Jay Bruce was pretty decent for it. I also will say I'm one of the biggest Lonnie Chisenhall and Tyler Naquin advocates out there. I thought both of them played pretty well for us.
But yeah, no,
but
like,
I get your point.
But like, who's the last time that like we had a right fielder?
You put him out there, set it and forget it.
Right, that you could set him and forget him. Like you just pointed out, that can hit you 25 home runs from a corner power position like Shin-Soo Choo and drive in 75, 80 runs a year. We haven't had that in literally 12 to 13 years. And I know, like, I have come on here and I've said a lot of good about this front office, but like we do have to point out a lot of their shortcomings, which we've absolutely been doing for the last half hour.
Yeah, and we've also, I will say, we've done it the last few weeks.
Yeah,
we've called out that the last 3 to 4 years of their recent history, of their recent tenure, hasn't lived up to what it had been previously.
And to go back to this point, I saw somebody the other day point out that Jose Tena's been, I guess, had a hot stretch in the Washington Nationals. And look, that's great and all, and people were like, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't have. Okay, listen, Lane Thomas, I get it. Well, he's actually a little hot right now, back-to-back games with home runs, and he's really got to get it going. That's a whole nother scenario. That guy's home runs, like they could have traded 10 more middle infielders for what the memories that guy gave us in the postseason last year.
Yeah.
And like the people that want Jose Tena back, sorry that we lost. Instead of having a baker's dozen, now we have a regular dozen of middle infielder gluttony, and we traded one away. Big deal. You know these and. It kills me, all the Twitter GMs who sit there with the this middle, and then they get mad about them not trading any middle infielders, but then when they do trade a middle infielder as part of a prospect package, these people go ballistic. So you're never going to make everybody happy, and I try to look at it kind of right, or kind of from the way they're looking at it, and so like. If I was them and if Chris Antonetti was either glazing and trying to appeal to the fans tonight and make them happy, that might have been one thing he was doing on TV, because that was they don't want a PR nightmare and they can't afford one right now. And so of course, like, I hope he's telling the truth when he says we're going to look to add and attack, but also on the same token, like you pointed out off the air, Kevin. What's he going to do when Andre Knott asked that question? Say, well, no, we actually plan on shipping out Lane Thomas, Carlos Santana,
So
Shane Bieber.
I am going to ask you, Jerome, like if they're going and they're going to attack, let's say at the deadline they are buyers, what position are you attacking first?
Well,
or if you can only pick one position for them to attack, where are you attacking?
To me, if I could add another bat to the lineup, and I don't even know,
but what,
like position wise on the field, that's interesting because that's why I think you need to bring up DeLauter now to see if he can handle it the rest of the year.
Same, but I think it's funny because we talk about the middle infield gluttony that you had brought up. I think I would try to attack and get a true middle infielder for this lineup. And I think it's funny that we were talking about the Nationals and Jose Tena, because wouldn't Ahmed Rosario be great in this lineup?
I think we mentioned that in Odds and Ends a few weeks ago, but yes, I had heard that on Zach Meisel and TJ Zuppy's Selby is Godcast podcast, which
You're a fan.
I am a big fan of that podcast. But anywho, I agree because they need the biggest problem is, and what I would probably do, even if they did get, and I know it's not directly answering your question, even if they did bring up Chase DeLauter, what I think they desperately need is like a right-handed bat that could hit left-handed pitching, or even a right-handed bat that could hit both pitching, because the problem with them right now is their lineup against lefties is abysmal, and then some of that's self-inflicted because they refuse to see if Daniel Schneemann could hit a lefty. They refuse to see if Kyle Manzardo could hit a lefty. They think that Gabriel Arias, because he's right-handed, is
just a good hitter when there's a left-handed pitcher.
Just God against lefties. We have no idea, but they need a right-handed stick, infield, outfield, and I agree with you. Ahmed Rosario would fit that role perfectly.
Yeah, I think he steps in, and he's probably doing what he did for us in 2022. He's probably batting second for this lineup right now.
I would think against lefties, I would like against righties to them to keep Manzardo in the 2 spot. I think,
but also then you have Ahmed Rosario in the bottom 3. If he gets on base, that speed with Quan coming up,
yeah.
What are we doing here?
I mean, I don't know where you'd even look to get this, but like they can't continue to get like nothing from the catcher. And I get it, Bo has 9 home runs.
But, I mean, catchers who can hit 220, 230, 240 and above are so hard to come by in today's MLB.
They are.
Who are you going and getting? If you go out and get an average catcher, you're going to have to give up a good amount.
No, you're 100% right on that. And, I mean, I get it. Bo has 9 home runs, so like the power's been there more a little bit. But like, dude, if the guy like I like the 9 home runs, but I can't have 175 in my nightly lineup. Like, if Bo could somehow,
and then you're subbing him out for 105.
It's really rough. If Bo can somehow like figure out how to hit like even like 205. Make a world like Bo Naylor,
just be above the Mendoza line.
Every time Bo would like creep towards 200, then he seems to go into like an 0 for 30 and right back down to 170. So I don't know. Listen, they got to figure it all out. I am excited that they got some guys on rehab assignment pitching wise, because there's some arms in that bullpen they've been using a lot lately that I don't trust come like down the stretch. Like Jacob Junis with the bases loaded tonight. And 1 out, he got out of it. Again, we're recording this on Wednesday, housekeeping if you decide to skip ahead. So this is Wednesday, or we'll release on Thursday. I don't know. I don't know if I trust Junis in the playoffs, or like the Matt Festa infestation lately has been too much for me to handle there too. Like, but I don't think they need to go because if you get Sewald back and he's hopefully somewhat effective, and then. A name people forgot about is also on, like, Trevor Stephan should be around the corner soon.
Yeah.
So I think the bottom line is I trust them to figure out the pitching. And you had made that point in off-season podcast because I was like hooting and hollering about.
Yeah, you were worried about it. I go, that's the one thing that I like. Dude, they could trot out. They could literally trot out 5 starters I'd never heard of and 8 bullpen pieces I'd never heard of, and I'd be like, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
They have earned that trust from me.
Right. And they are historically really good at doing that. Even like the Athletic like unanimous players survey had come out, and I think they actually finished like minus their like fraudulent cheap ownership. They had finished as like a top 8 team to play, and one unanimous player was like, they were like one organization you'd like to play for, and one who you don't have never played for in your career. And one unanimous pitcher was quoted as saying, "Cleveland, you never really know who their pitchers are, and then they're striking you the bleep out." And he's like, they never seem to have anybody that anybody knows, but they always figure out the pitching.
They do.
I think that's a good point
Every single time.
And so like we've seen the pitching get better, especially like Ortiz. I just need more consistency out of him. Like, terrible in Seattle, and then comes great against the A's.
The thing is, we did kind of have a feeling that that's how this season was going to be for Ortiz. So nothing really has taken me by surprise with Luis Ortiz this year. So
I'll tell you the one who's really shocked me, the Slade Ciccone.
Yeah.
I mean, the last 2 outings, the Giants and then the A's outing,
we touched on it a little bit.
Excellent on that West Coast road trip.
Yeah, he was.
And they could have let him go into the 8th inning on Sunday's
I think
game.
so, too. And the one thing with him is that you can tell the control's not all the way there. There's still some balls that get away from him. But we talked about this last week. Like, the movement on his pitches is filthy.
Yeah.
And when we were looking back on the Andres Jimenez and the Josh Naylor trades that we had made this offseason, we seemed pretty confused by the Jimenez deal at first until they flipped Horowitz for Ortiz and the couple other guys that they had gotten, the prospects they had gotten. And then the Naylor deal, we both looked at each other. I'll never forget it because we were getting ready for a Christmas party and we were driving back home. And when we had heard the news about Naylor getting traded for a pitcher nobody had heard of with a 7 ERA in the minors, and we were like, oh, geez, this is nobody understood that trade, and now it's coming full circle, and Ciccone looks pretty solid.
It looks pretty good, and like you said, they will take. The old saying is they'll take chicken bleep and turn it into chicken salad, and they've done that with pitching for years. The issue is the hitting. They just never
can't figure it out.
They cannot.
And when they do, they usually trade the players.
Right. They cannot develop hitting, and that's where I think the fans,
they really just want to win a bunch of 2-1 ball games.
Well, that's the way they've been structured for years.
Yeah, for the last 4 probably.
I'd argue that they've been structured like that since probably 2019. Because they always...
I'll say 21. I'll give you 21 or something.
And the thing is, they always... And it is true, though, because they put that stat on TV. I swear every night it's on Guardians TV. Oh, when they score 4 or more... 4 is not some, No,
it's not at all.
Outstanding number of runs... But if you look at their history over the last decade, if they score 4 or more runs, they do not really lose.
If they had a top 20 payroll, if they were in the top 2/3 of the MLB in payroll and spent the money that they're not spending now to get there on hitting, we'd probably have, I'm not even kidding you, dude, we'd probably have 10 more wins.
Yeah, I agree with you because, I mean, this lineup... some nights, especially against left-handers, is brutal. And if they're serious, we're beating a dead horse here. We got to move on. But if they are serious about winning and being serious this year, they got to fix that lineup because you can't. As great as Slade Ciccone's been, and as great as some flashes of brilliance from Luis Ortiz and stuff, you have no idea what they're going to do in the postseason. Like Bybee, he's been there. Gavin Williams, he has a hair of experience. Shane, when Shane comes back, he's been there. And I will say this, the 4 or more run thing would stand up because I don't think too many teams would want to face Shane, Tanner, Gavin come playoff time, and that's probably what it would be.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. Now coming up on, and I'm going to ask you this I'm going to ask you this each episode until we get there, so probably only 2 or 3 more times. But are they going to be buyers, sellers, or are they going to stand pat at the deadline?
Well, tonight, as much as I've sat here and criticized them, the vibes are high after Jose's walk-off. I'm feeling okay about them. You know how I get so high and low day in and day out.
Oh, yeah.
So the vibes are high right now. I'm going to go ahead and say that they're going to do some low-key buys. Nothing that's going to blow anybody away, but they're going to go like get something little. And I don't think they'll sell anything off. They'll let Lane finish the year here, and they'll let Carlos finish the year here, I think.
Okay, see, I think they're going to do some low-key sells. Like I think
so, like
I think
Lane
they'll,
and Carlos.
I think yes.
Okay.
So I'm almost think the opposite. Actually, I think Lane's going to be here regardless, just because of the year that he's had. I think they're going to want to carry him into the offseason and be able to get him at an affordable price. So I think that they're going to keep Lane. I think they're probably going to ship off Santana. And maybe another piece that I just can't think of right now. I mean, no one's going to trade for Hedges. Hedges is going to be here regardless.
Yeah, the one thing that would be interesting about them shipping off Santana, and obviously I have my biases there, but
right,
like with them being so obsessed with matchups and analytic based, like, do you think they really trust like Manzardo and Kayfus to like play first the rest of the year against, dare I say, left-handed pitching? The whole rest
I think they might have to, which I think that could force their hand, and it might be for the betterment of this team long term.
Yeah, like I said, I just think right now, and I know I have it's tough to like look at this lineup like it's not a good lineup as is, and then you get rid of a guy who's been hitting third, fourth, or fifth all year and doing a pretty good job of it, and you're like, so where's the... Like, it's not even like Carlos Santana is having, like, some MVP type year, but in this lineup, sure he is, because it stinks. So,
yeah,
it'll be interesting. All right, well, enough. We've talked about the Guardians quite extensively.
Guardians heavy episode on the CSR.
Well, and you're going to have a lot of those the rest because it's the time of the year, and they're the only ones actually playing games on our TV screens.
Yeah, preseason doesn't start for the Browns for another month and a half. We got... obviously, basketball, NBA doesn't start until October, so it's gonna be pretty Guardians heavy, I think, for the next month and a half.
Yeah, absolutely. But with that being said, we've decided that we are going to touch on a little bit of NBA. Again, recording this Wednesday, this evening, simultaneously as we record the NBA draft taking place, which Kevin, being the draft king that he is, he was all about it. I quite honestly
watched the first 10 picks.
Yeah, not too interested, but. Before the draft, we had talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Kevin Durant goes to Houston. He'll play there for a couple of years, a year and a half, and he'll be off somewhere else. But
possibly retirement. I mean, he's like 36, 37 years old now.
Yeah, it's true. And there's not many built like LeBron who are still doing what he's doing at 40.
There are. So, but I thought that deal was absolutely absurd for Houston. I mean, they gave up Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, top 10 pick who was drafted tonight, Kamen Malawach from Duke, and then 5 second-round picks, which typically don't amount to anything in the NBA, so I don't look at that too much. But I think Houston being a 2 seed and giving up one of your core pieces, probably a top... I think you could argue he was a top 2 player on that team in Jalen Green, definitely top 3 team with one of the Thompson twins there, and then obviously Alperin Sengun's, one of the best centers in the league now at this point. But I think this is a very desperate move from Houston, man. I think you're giving up such a core young piece that would have been with that team for the next 5+ years for you to make runs. I mean, you were a top 2 seed and in the West, which filled with juggernauts. Obviously, OKC, Denver, the Lakers with Luka and LeBron, Golden State. You can never count them out. There's just so many teams in that West. For them to be that young of a team and be a 2 seed, I can't fathom this deal, and I don't think it's going to work out for them. I think they're going to look back on this in a couple years and regret it. And I think Jalen Green's going to be a huge piece to a potential. I can't really tell what Phoenix is doing. I can't tell if they're rebuilding or if they're just trying to stay competitive. Still having. Obviously, Devin Booker there, so it's an interesting move all the way around, but I just don't see this really working out for Houston in the long term.
I don't either, and you gave a lot more logical and fact-based reasons, in my opinion. My reason is simply because history repeats itself. In the last 2 times Kevin Durant's been traded, both those organizations have been utter failures. You look at Brooklyn Nets, it amounted to absolutely nothing. It was an utter failure. You look at the Phoenix Suns, in the NBA where 89% of the teams make the postseason, they didn't do it.
Did you see statistically Kevin Durant, the best of his career was with the Nets statistically in terms of points, rebounds, assists, and efficiency? Like shooting percentage, 3-point, free throw?
That's because Kyrie didn't want to get vaccinated, and James Harden decided to sit there in hoodie and jeans every night.
How did that make Kevin Durant more efficient?
Because he had to take. I guess. I don't know. I mean, he had to do a lot.
No, he definitely had to do a lot, but the efficiencies were there too. It wasn't like he was scoring, 30 points a game on shooting like 42% field goal percentage and 32% three-point percentage. Like he was 50, 40, 90 in Brooklyn. Like he was pretty great there, and they were basically 2 inches away from going to the finals that one year when he hit that buzzer beater. So.
But then it left them high and dry, and then
he totally did.
And then,
well, actually, I wouldn't say he left them high and dry. They got a king's ransom for him when they shipped him to Phoenix.
Yeah, but still, they haven't been good since then.
No, they haven't.
Now Phoenix is going to stink too. This guy is just a killer at this point in his career.
The only time, I mean, he up and left OKC, and then the only reason he's ever been a winner is because he joined a 73-win basketball team.
Right. And he joined the greatest shooter, in my opinion, in league history.
Yeah, and one of the most, I think, hands down, I was a hater of him during those Cavs-Warriors finals, but Steph Curry's definitely a top 5 influencer of the game of basketball, I think, maybe of all time, with the way that the game's played.
Oh, I mean, you hear, coaches, like you hear from little or youth coaches say, we don't want you to play like Curry, to like the kids all wanting to play like
they
Curry.
all want to play like him.
I mean, everybody talks about him. So, no, I agree with you completely. This trade's going to end up working out terribly.
I think so,
terribly for the Houston Rockets. Now, let's talk about the Cavs element from that.
I was just going to get to that.
A lot of people say they were involved. Now, who the hell's to know if they were or weren't? I don't understand how they could have been involved because of like the second and third and fifth apron and
here
all
you go
that.
again.
And I don't understand any of that. And I probably need to learn it at some point so I could be a little more educated on my own program here. But honestly, I don't understand how these guys who know, like Bobby Marx's of the world, the front office executive on ESPN, tell me that all we could sign is a mid-level veterans exception, and then somehow we could take on Kevin Durant's like 55.
Well, so here's why though is the whole rumor was that it was going to be Garland for Durant, not a straight swap, but the rumor was that the Cavs had offered Darius Garland in a Kevin Durant trade. Now, obviously, I'm very glad that didn't happen. I don't think it would have. I just would have hated to see Kevin Durant in a Cavs uniform, for him basically almost single-handedly taking down what would have been a Cavs dynasty after 2016. But I actually read that it was the Suns that approached the Cavs, seeing if they'd be willing to part with Garland in a Durant deal. I saw that it was not the Cavs that approached the Suns, which made me feel a little bit better, and hopefully that makes Darius feel a little bit better going into this offseason.
Well, so from what I understand, and again, I'm not very educated on it, and I'm not going to shy away from it. From what I understand, with the aprons and all that, if the only way the Cavaliers are going to get anybody of substance is by moving Garland or Allen.
Because of the salaries. But they have to match up too, though. They can't stack. I read they can't stack salaries. So let's say if Kevin Durant's making, hypothetical numbers here, $60 million a year, Garland's making 45, and Jared Allen's making 25. They can't stack those salaries together in order to get Durant because they're in the second apron. It's actually why the Celtics ended up moving off of Kristaps for literally George Niang and a second-round pick, was just to get that salary off the books. And then they moved Holiday to the Trailblazers just so that they can get out of that second apron. Now I believe they're in the first apron. They might not be in any apron. I don't know. But yeah, like the teams are trying to get out of these aprons that the NBA has, because it's. There are rules against being able to trade once you're past a certain point in order to take on more salary.
Well, so Kevin, I know you're going to disagree with me on this, but the only way the Cavs get better is probably by moving Garland, because his salary is the only one that's big enough, and you're not, in my opinion, and we've gone over this. We had a big debate about this a while ago. You're not going to be willing, in my opinion, move Donovan Mitchell for sure. That's not the one I know you'll do. And I'm not moving Evan Mobley. So
I know you're not.
So the only one that makes sense to move would be Darius Garland. And if he can help you out with the aprons in the kitchen and getting out under or over or wherever the hell they need to be, then move them.
So here's my thing with the Cavs. When the season ended and we lost in 5 to the Pacers, we were both sitting here saying that major changes need to be made, right?
Yeah.
I'm no longer in that camp, and it's strictly because of what has happened since then. We saw Jason Tatum. He's probably going to be out the entire year for the Celtics. The Celtics have made those moves. They got rid of Holiday. They got rid of Porzingis. We don't really know what's going on with the Celtics anymore. The Pacers, and you have to feel bad for Tyrese Halliburton. We haven't even covered the finals.
Yeah.
You have to feel horrendous for Halliburton. The way that he started that game, the way that he basically carried that team throughout the entire playoffs, game-winning shot after game-tying shot, so on and so forth with him. It was one of the coolest. The Indiana Pacers had one of the coolest playoff runs that I can seriously remember.
Well, and I agree with you. You have to feel awful for Halliburton because I think there's a good chance that they would have won that game.
I think there's a very much potential that they would have won that game. I think as soon as he was ruled out, the game was over basically.
And I really like to think they would have won that game because I said it on the podcast and predicted Pacers in 7.
I know you did. You said that at the beginning of the series.
And had it not been for Tyrese blowing his Achilles, I think I could sit here and take a victory lap.
You may have been right. We're not going to say that you would have been, but you may have been.
Now, due to a blown out Achilles,
right.
I cannot do so.
So here's where I'm going with this. Tatum, Achilles, season's most likely over. Halliburton, Achilles, season is, I would say, most likely over, if not indefinitely over. Damian Lillard from the Milwaukee Bucks, Achilles, seasons might be over for him.
They stink anyway.
So this is what I'm saying. That these are all playoff teams that have lost a top 2 or their best player in the East. The only team right now that I am looking at in the East that's a genuine threat to the Cavs right now is the New York Knicks, who the Cavs had their number the entire regular season. But we've seen this now year in and year out with this Knicks team. It doesn't matter what they look like in the regular season. Their toughness steps up in the playoffs. They play smarter basketball in the playoffs. I would be scared going up against the Knicks in the playoffs. I know we're talking about almost a full calendar year out from this right now. But that's the only team I look at right now in the East as a genuine threat to the Cavs. I think those are hands down the top 2 teams. I don't think another team really sniffs them right now. Now, things can obviously change this offseason. Maybe the Sixers, and I know you're going to laugh, but maybe the Sixers, Jared McCain, they just drafted VJ Edgecombe, top 3 overall pick. Jared McCain, him, Tyrese Maxey. They still have Paul George, which I'm not a big Paul George believer anymore. He's like 6 years past his prime. And Joel Embiid. Like, they still have a bunch of names on that roster.
Joel Embiid's going to play 5 games.
I know, but I'm saying they have a bunch of names on that roster. Things didn't go well this year for them. Maybe something happens within that locker room where a switch gets flipped on and they have a good year. And maybe I could see the Sixers maybe being a team that we look at some point middle of the year next year, saying, okay, they're a team we didn't expect. But other than that, man, it's only the Knicks that I'm looking at as a genuine threat to the Cavs right now. Like, I don't think the Cavs need to make a major move anymore like I once did, like I did like a month ago.
See, I still do. And the reason why is because they have shown no ability to beat anybody in the playoffs. Like, their only series win is over Orlando team, which also got better by getting Desmond Bane.
It's a great point, actually. I completely didn't even think about the Magic.
The other series win they have is over gosh, I can't even think of it. Who they beat in the first round this year?
Oh, the Heat?
Which was a Heat team that was just horrendous. They sold the deadline. So, like, they haven't shown the ability to beat anybody.
Like a genuine playoff team.
So who the hell am I to sit here and say, well, just because the Celtics, and I get it, losing Tatum and Holiday and Porzingis is big. Jaylen Brown is still going to be there, and he's still a damn good player. The Knicks, they gave the Pacers all they could handle in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, they did.
So I still think to sit here in the Cavs and sit and rest on your, I guess, laurels, which don't exist.
I don't want to make a move like just for the sake of making a move though. Like, I want to make a move if it's genuinely in the best interest of the team. And I don't know if trading Darius Garland is in the best interest of the team unless there's genuinely pieces that we can get back, or a bigger piece that we can potentially get back, because we talked about our whole thing the entire year with this Cavs team was how deep this team was. We don't need to add any more depth. There's no need to add any depth to this team.
The playoffs show that the depth, and we were wrong on it. It's non-existent.
Well, what? You think the depth was non-existent?
Come the playoffs, who really showed up on the bench? Ty Jerome was
was awful.
Ty Jerome was no good until like Game 5. He decided to do a little bit.
Craig Porter played pretty well in his limited minutes. I think he
Yeah.
maybe got 10 total minutes, but he played well.
Dean Wade, I love the guy. He was useless come
Yeah.
playoffs. Isaac Okoro is literally not worth a bag of balls.
I actually did see that the Cavs basically essentially put him on the trade block and nobody called, I guess.
Yeah, no, I had heard that from I believe it was Windhurst said
Yeah.
that the Cavs
They're having a hard time generating interest there.
The Cavs have genuinely been trying to trade Isaac Okoro for he goes since literally the deadline. He goes, and nobody's willing to give them a bag of deflated basketballs for it. Like, and again, that's why signing him to a contract was a mistake. It was a total mistake. He's overpaid. He can't play, and he stinks.
No, I said this actually off the air, but like Lou Dort for the Oklahoma City Thunder is exactly what Isaac Okoro needs to be. And I don't know what is holding him back from being a Lou Dort.
Well, I can. He can't put the ball in the basket.
Well, okay.
I mean, come on. And that's the thing. When you when you're in this kind of NBA where it's all predicated on scoring, I don't need to go down the Isaac Okoro rabbit hole tonight. He stinks. I should.
You've been the only person going down the Isaac Okoro rabbit hole.
But I'm gonna have to because the guy stinks so bad. Okay. The guy can't shoot. You knew he couldn't shoot, and you gave him a
That's just like simply not true, though.
You gave him a huge contract extension, like, and I'm going to say huge because for a guy who can literally only play on one end of the floor, it was a total failure of a move.
It was like 14, 15 million, dude. I mean, there's people in the NBA that are making like $60 million a year. Let's not act like this Isaac Okoro contract set this franchise back.
Well, sure it did.
It absolutely didn't.
Because Kevin, if you don't hand a guy who
I'm not saying that I'm not saying we should be giving Isaac Okoro 30 minutes a night. Hell, I'm not even saying he should get 15 minutes a night anymore. Honestly, he was pretty horrendous in these playoffs. But to say that like his contract is holding this team back is, I think, a pretty preposterous point.
I don't at all, and I'm gonna tell you why. And we're running short on time here, but let me get this point in. The reason why is because we're in the second, third, whatever the
second apron. We've been over this like the 5th week in a row. We've gone over the second apron with you. All right?
Whatever apron we're in there because we don't have any money to give to anybody. That is $15 million that you are literally lighting on fire.
You can.
It is useless, and we could give somebody else for $15 million who, I don't know, might be able to make a shot come the postseason. It's a giant waste.
You could still be in the second apron even if you forego that $15 million, you're probably still in the second apron.
Well, you don't know that for a fact.
Neither do you.
We might be.
We've already come to the conclusion we don't know how the aprons work.
Yeah. But either way, when you're in cap hell like they are in, when you're having to start open the cabinet and bring out all these aprons like the Cavaliers have had to do, then guess what? A big reason why you had to do that is because you gave Isaac Okoro a useless contract extension.
Okay, all right.
And it infuriates me. And I bet he's a real nice kid, and I hate talking bad about him. I bet he's a real nice kid.
You love talking bad about Isaac Okoro.
But he is.
You got a grin on your face as you're talking about
he
how
is
miserable
utterly
he is.
useless as a basketball player. He really is, And like you said, if he could be like Lou Dort, that's a pipe dream at this point.
It is, but I didn't think for a 5th overall pick who specialized on defense that it would be. Like I would have hoped I would have gotten Lou Dort out of that, and that's who we need him to be. It's not who he's going to be. It's probably not who he's ever going to be, unfortunately. And I've been riding this Isaac Okoro train for
years.
3 to 4 years, probably 3 years, I would say, is when he started getting a little bit of backlash in the city. I would say about 3 years ago, roughly after his second year, people were like, okay, we need to see more out of him. And then I just kind of accepted him for who he was, and now I need him to be more than what he is, and it's not. It's not happening right now, Isaac. I'm starting to lose a little bit of faith in you, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's an utter failure, and it was a bust, and the whole thing's a disaster.
Yeah.
I got nothing else to say about it.
Something that's not a disaster, though. The Browns moving to Brook Park.
Yeah, that looks like it's going to become official.
It is. The Haslams are going to get their $600 million that they've asked the city for.
The state for.
The state for, excuse me, yeah. That Darryl Ryder did report. I want to say he reported that around 5 o'clock or so this afternoon, Wednesday afternoon.
So now
And I do say, I know I've been a huge advocate of keeping the stadium on the lake because I do genuinely love where it's located. I think it's an amazing location for the stadium, just being directly on the lakefront. I saw the video that the Browns had posted again of, what March Madness could look like in there, what a Super Bowl could look like, what one of those big concerts could look like, what the games are going to look like, what the entire community around it is going to look like, and it looks first class. Like it looks, and obviously renderings are renderings. Things could potentially change leading up to the actual building of this little community that they're making, but it looks like it looks special.
So the Browns move to Brook Park was cleared by the state. The Modell law gets modified so that So and then
which it needed to be.
Then the Cuyahoga County to be allowed to put sin tax increase on the ballot. So they're going to try to increase the sin tax, that's your tax on, gambling, cigarettes, chew, drinking, all that kind of stuff. Buying beer,
all your fun things.
Yeah. So
we make it more expensive to have fun.
Yeah. So we'll see what goes on with that, obviously, but it does sound like it's going to be a go. And I trust Daryl. He's been all over this.
Yeah, he's been all over the stadium. Yeah.
Him and Ed Gallick, Ed and Peggy Gallick from Fox 8, they've covered it better than anybody in the city. So
yeah, Daryl Ryder's been doing. He did a good job on the stadium coverage. He did.
So hopefully that does end up happening. Like I said, it sounds like it's a go now, and today was a big day for the Browns making that a go, I believe. Another not so good story in baseball. Ketel Marte.
Odds and ends, right?
Yeah, this is odds and ends.
Yeah, needed a transition.
My bad.
It's okay.
Ketel Marte harassed by a fan. His mother had passed away, and a fan with a very crude comment about his mother. MLB has since banned that fan for life. Look, I don't mind a little razzing of the opposing players, like, hey, you suck, or this or that.
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, you have to expect that.
You don't start bringing their mother, father, wife, children into it. That's where I draw the line.
Well, especially if they're deceased. You don't bring in deceased relatives to anything. There's obviously a line that's crossed there. We've always talked about the blurred lines, we've seen a lot of the NBA players specifically will point out certain fans, and I'm sure the fans say something not remotely offensive. The NBA guys just are a bunch of pretty boys sometimes that just want to kick some people out of the stadium because they think they're all tough, Jerome. Hey. But once you cross that line and you start criticizing deceased relatives, like there's clearly a line that's crossed there. And I don't know about a lifetime ban. I think that might be a little bit I'm not saying what the fan did was right by any means, but I feel like that's for a 5-second interaction, for a 5-second comment, like in order for you not to go to a Major League Baseball game again for the remainder of your life, I think is a little bit harsh. I'm sure that may get lifted for him in a few years. Yeah. I'm sure it probably would, but I think that's a little bit harsh of a punishment.
I completely agree with that, and I also, like I said, it visibly shook Ketel Marte.
Yeah, he was like sobbing on the field.
And you don't want to see that.
Yeah, and I guess I did see the report too that the fan was like clearly remorseful. Like he wasn't just saying sorry to say sorry. Like I guess the fan was showing a little bit of empathy as well.
As he should.
Oh yeah, absolutely, as he should. So yeah, it's unfortunate that those things are said, but is what it is, unfortunately. And Ketel Marte is going to be okay by it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all we got tonight for odds and ends. We got to go.
Yeah, we're running a little bit over, huh?
Yeah, we are. And Derek, he's does not want to work any longer. He looks exhausted over there.
He does look exhausted. I mean, when you do as good of a job as he does.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get tired.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, thanks, Derek. Good job. Great job, really. You can follow us. That'd be Kevin, myself, and Derek in our podcast at CLE Sports Room. You can catch us out on Twitter. You can catch us out on Instagram and TikTok for you younger folks too.
Yeah, at CLE Sports Realm.
That's right. And this podcast will be available for you on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night, and we'll catch you next week.
Go Tribe.